Marvel live at New York Comic Con 2016, brought to you by Marvel Contest of Champions. I'm Ryan Penagos.
I am Ben Morse, and we've got with us the legend, Jim Starlin, just fresh from the 25th anniversary of the Infinity Saga panel. How was the panel?
We didn't put him to sleep.
Oh?
It worked out, no fruit thrown.
That's
Few
good.
vegetables, but nothing big.
Yeah.
No.
Very nice.
Nothing too heavy.
And we've combined you with a Thanos mug here. You're going
Oh,
to
it's
be
a
taking
mug.
us home.
Adorb.
Adorb? Adorb is what I meant.
Oh,
It's a toy. That's the name of the toy.
Don't clip this one.
Yeah.
I was kind of looking forward to drinking coffee out of Thanos'
Oh, yeah.
We need to get a licensee on that stat.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But that would be very cool. So let's talk Thanos. You've been
Okay.
working with this guy for decades now, and you're not sick of him.
No.
What keeps him so interesting to you?
Well, if we are honest with ourselves, we all have really dark things in us that we don't want to let out, we don't want other people to know about. I don't feel that way. I think I let everything come out with him, and he just does the terrible things that I can't be allowed to do, or I'd be locked up. He can get away with it.
He gets away with a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of bad stuff.
I mean, the best I can do is abuse my cats a little bit. So.
Oh, that's terrible. But very Thanos.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why you're so good at writing his stories. What do you still have to say with the character after all these years? Because you're still doing original graphic novels with him. You're still telling stories. What do you use him to talk about?
It depends on the story. The next one we're going to do is with Thanos and his little brother Eros. And so it's sort of sibling rivalry with also giving the chance to really examine Eros more than I ever did before.
Yeah, you.
And I'm not talking into my mic. am I?
No.
That's kind of
Okay.
playing around with that, but yeah, that's true. You've never really gone after Eros, who sometimes known as Star Fox. What made him interesting as someone you wanted to bring into the story?
Maybe it's things with my own brother. It just seemed time to do something with him. Gamora and Drax, other folks had come along and did some very nice things, developed characters that I had left sort of in a fetal stage, and then they gave it life of their own. Eros, I thought I'd really like to do more with him, and nobody really has. And so this is my chance to explore more of a sensual side of the character. Wow. X-rated comics.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Headline.
So what brought you back to these characters from when you first established them, when we had those original stories with Thanos, with Warlock, with all them, and then to the Infinity Gauntlet? What brought you back at that point?
To the Infinity Gauntlet?
Yeah, to the
Oh.
bringing to the Thanos quest and the Infinity Gauntlet and that saga, bringing up those characters and reinvigorating all of Marvel Cosmic at that
Yeah.
point.
Well, I've been doing this for like 45 years
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
point. And during that time, there's been a lot of different editors, some good, some bad. Some I stayed working with, some I quit and left and went to do other things on. I came back and Craig Anderson wanted me to do the Silver Surfer book because sales weren't doing all that well at the time. They picked up, and Marvel was churning out books like crazy. I think at this point, all the X-Men had their own individual books. You know this time I'm talking about.
Yep.
And so anything that actually sold, they wanted more of. And the Surfer sold, and then Thanos Quest sold, and it just kept steamrolling along, and I just have to keep up with the ideas. So
What is it about Marvel Cosmic that appeals to you? Because you've
I
explored.
don't have to draw either horses or cars.
That's a great answer. But
That's my standard answer
that's
on
your
that
standard
one.
answer. But yeah, no, you've really tapped into something about the cosmic characters, and they've really become. I mean, it's hard to write the cosmic characters without running into some interpretation that you've done. Why do you feel like that's where you really left your mark?
Well, Jack Kirby and his space adventures were the things I loved the best. His trips of Thor out on Quest and the Fantastic Four doing their things in the Negative Zone. This was the stuff I grew up on. And it was just a natural progression. Plus, there was a lot of Wilhelm Reich and Jung and other psychological things that I was reading about at the time, Castaneda. And all this stuff sort of naturally, the gravity just sort of pulled it all together. And that's where Captain Marvel and Warlock came out of.
That's great. We do have some questions and tweets coming in using the hashtag MarvelNYCC. First one from DJ Fanko is an interesting one. It says, what is your time management secret when you're writing and illustrating a book? Do you have, like, because that's a ginormous task. We talk to a lot of writers or artists, but you're doing both on many of these projects. What is your secret to getting that done in time?
I get up in the morning, have 2 cups of coffee, or work until 6 o'clock, and knock off and watch a movie or go to bed early. I'm a really dull fellow.
Are you on social media?
Sort of.
Okay, sort of.
Yeah,
Usually
I've got 5,000 fans that I have, friends who I
Facebook.
don't know who they are.
Sure.
Yeah. But basically, I just try and do a page a day when I'm drawing. The writing, I try a normal-sized book to write in a week, a regular-sized 20-page comic. But I'm working on a lot of different things most of the time. I've never worked exclusively into comics. I've worked in computer companies, television animation, and different things along the way. And comics are the thing I have the most control of when I get into them and get something I really like doing. So the time thing never really becomes a problem for me. I'm always ahead on my deadlines. I'm one of the weird ones.
How about with the original graphic novels? Is it a different situation there when you're putting out such a large quantity of work?
Well, when I first faced 100 pages, I freaked out, of course. But then I realized I could just break it down into 5 20-pagers.
Very
And
smart.
I was lying to myself, basically. It's still 100 pages, but it just sort of looks better when you say, okay, if I got this one, I'm a fifth of the way through, that's a whole issue. I can take a day off.
We have one in here from Michael W.S. He says, what has it been like to go to a convention and to see a character such as Thanos cosplayed, walking around, and you can see the characters you created just walking and breathing around?
I've only run into one Thanos down in Mexico City.
Huh.
How did that confrontation go? That sounds like the start of a great story.
That's a great.
I didn't understand a thing he said. I said, "I no español," But, no, it was a really great costume, and there was a Gamora and Thanos and Groot. It was just after the Guardians movies, and it was kind of nice. Actually, the Gamora was the one I had more interplay with than Thanos because he had a mask on, and I don't think he could talk too well, as I recall. And Groot was just a tree, so.
Why do you think these characters are translating well to film now? Why do you think that they're able to speak to a larger audience than just, us guys who read comic books?
Well, Gamora and Drax are they're archetypes. I mean, big lumbering guy, tough gal. Those two are obvious. Thanos, it really remains to be seen that we are going to translate him well into movies because he hasn't really done much at this point. They're traveling along the same road that I did with the comics, where he's a presence for a long time before he actually starts kicking some tail.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see what they do with it.
I will just say that he kicks plenty of tail, and there'll be plenty of tail being kicked.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be intense. I'm very excited to see that for sure. And what about, we see now, like this. We have an Infinity Gauntlet toy that it's like this rubber fist. You've got the Thanos toy here. There's all this stuff.
My favorite one is the oven mitt.
Oh,
That burst into flames if you got near anything too hot.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with the oven mitt.
I've signed a couple of
Good
them.
times.
They didn't all get a call.
I was going to ask, what is your favorite of all the materials, but if it's the oven mitt?
I'd like to get a hold of one of those 18-inch Thanos statues that are in metal or something like that. I mean, they're like $800 or something like that. That's the one I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, Marvel.
We're working on
Blake,
it.
where's Blake?
Yeah.
Let's get that up.
You've written a bunch of different cosmic heroes as well. You've got Adam Warlock, you've got Captain Marvel, you wrote the Silver Surfer, even though you didn't create him. How do they represent different aspects of kind of the hero for you, the hero of the story?
Well, I like taking stories that the characters go on a journey with.
Yes.
They start at point A, and somewhere down the line they finally hit point C. And the B is where the story is. With Captain Marvel, he was a warrior who I turned in sort of a kung fu saint. Warlock, on the other hand, after I took him over, I realized that he was already a saint, so I turned him into a paranoid schizophrenic suicidal maniac.
Yeah.
A nice one.
As,
a nice
one
but-
does.
And Silver Surfer, basically, I wanted him to have to face the guilt that he should have been facing all these years by assisting Galactus in mass murder. And that was basically what his storyline was about. So, everyone gets a little place.
Yeah,
They
different sides.
they start off a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why some editors are kind of hesitant to use me.
Yeah.
Please don't break my character.
We have a tweet in here from Sophia, who's a fan from Spain. She says, "Sir, you're a legend, huge fan of your work. Do you have any advice for someone trying to become a comic book writer or artist?"
Write a lot of stuff, read and draw things that aren't comics. Look at everything if you want to be an artist. Write like crazy. Don't let a day go by where you don't get to practice your craft. When I was back in high school, I knew I wanted to be a cartoonist, and I wouldn't say every day I got down into the basement studio and started drawing. A lot of days I got into trouble instead. So then I would be stuck down in the basement drawing, so that had a lot to do with it. But, you got to practice, and you just got to do it, and you got to show things, and you have to let people tear your work apart. And if you're a writer, go to writing lessons, go to seminars, soak everything up you can. That's what being an artist is about, is just getting out there and absorbing.
If you could only do one, would you choose to write or draw?
Right, it's a lot easier. 6,000 men come traveling over the top of a hilltop. A lot easier to write, let me tell you. Yeah.
Now, you've had some great collaborations over the years, too. You've written a lot of stuff. You've worked with Ron Lim frequently. I know you worked with George Perez initially.
Bernie
on the
Wrightson, and now with Alan Davis. I've got some good ones.
You've got some real good ones. Who have been some of the premier kind of partnerships, and why have they worked so well?
Well, the solid ones have been Ron and Bernie. Those two I've worked with more than anybody else. Alan's going to very quickly catch up on them in the page count. They were both different. They were diametrically opposed. They both gave me what I wanted in the story. And what they would do is take different paths. Bernie never drew, Ron always drew something, and it looked like how I envisioned it. Bernie never drew it the way I envisioned it, but it always worked. So you learn there's different paths to the same place.
Very cool.
Coming up soon, guys, stay tuned. We're going to have an interview with Logic here on Marvel Live. Jim, where are fans going to be able to find you on social media? You mentioned you have your 5,000 unknown followers. Is that on Facebook?
Yeah, but I only get there about once every 6 months.
So
they're
send them a
not
message
going to
in
get a
6
lot
months,
out
you're
of
gonna
me.
have an amazing reply.
Yeah, you're going to get a great story.
And they're going to see mostly pictures of my new grandchild.
Oh, congratulations.
Addie. Hello, Addie. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And what have we got coming up? You said we've got another Thanos original graphic novel coming?
Yes, I think we're going to call this one the Infinity Siblings.
Oh.
I've got 2 other titles, but I can't remember what the other 2 will be called.
Right.
I've got them written down somewhere.
What's the pitch on this one?
Thanos' little brother gets into the game and is stranger than anybody thought.
That's awesome.
I like that.
I like how it goes.
Last question. If you had a choice of any of the 6 Infinity Gems, which one would you pick?
Very excellent question.
Soul, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's the one I started off with, and I've got sort of a warm spot in my heart
Yeah.
for it. Or in my soul. one or two.
Yeah. Regardless. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you more importantly for all the incredible stories you've created over the years. I know I'm a huge fan. Ryan's a huge fan.
my
Some of
gosh,
our
yeah.
favorite stuff. So
I
thank
can
you so
distinctly
much.
remember picking up Infinity Gauntlet number 6 from the 5 and 10, and that was just like, that was it. I was hooked up. That was the moment that I was officially fully ever hooked on comics. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you very
and
much.
look over there.
We'll see you guys soon with Logic
Let's go.
here on Marvel Live, New York Comic Con 2016. Oh my God.